God's Pure Word of Faith with Richard Hardin can now be heard on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7 a.m. Central, 8 Eastern, and on Sunday mornings at his regular time, 6 Central, 7 Eastern. Join with him and let's turn our country back to God. It only takes a spark to start a forest fire. Let's get on fire for the Lord. Right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. Visit Richard's website at rahardin.com. That's the World Wide Web at rahardin.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Hardin to see and purchase his books. K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com. Here's a few tips in finding Richard's podcast. Go to the World Wide Web at k98talk.com. Scroll down to podcasts. When podcast comes up, look for a red button with a white plus sign in it. Open this content in a new window by clicking the link. When a new website appears, click on Shows, then scroll to God's Pure Word of Faith. Click on the name and a list of programs will come up. That's it. Now enjoy God's Pure Word of Faith with Richard Hardin. God's Pure Word of Faith with Richard Hardin can now be heard on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7 a.m. Central, 8 Eastern, and on Sunday mornings at his regular time, 6 Central, 7 Eastern. Join with him and let's turn our country back to God. It only takes a spark to start a forest fire. Let's get on fire for the Lord. Right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. Visit Richard's website at rahardin.com. That's the World Wide Web at rahardin.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Hardin to see and purchase his books.
I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
You're listening to God's Pure Word of Faith with Richard Hardin. Richard will guide you through the Bible and help you find God's purpose for your life. Now here's teacher and author Richard Hardin.
Welcome to God's Pure Word of Faith. I'm Richard Hardin. I'm going to be here with you now for the next hour. I hope you'll stick around with me. Again, I want to thank the Lord and the management of K98 Talk for this great opportunity to share God's Word with you today. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a story that kind of highlights the fact that we should never become complacent with God's Word. As Christians in our society and everything, I've seen so many changes in the attitude of our society and attitude of people to God's Word and Christians since back in the 50s. I can remember back when, they wouldn't have any school activities on Wednesday night because they would, know that so many of the children in school, public school, would be going to some type of worship services. They wouldn't have any school activities on Sunday afternoon or any time like that because they allowed for people to have time to, go to worship services. And I can even remember during that time that a lot of people didn't even go out to eat or do things like that on Sunday. They would cook on Saturday, the women would, and prepare the meals, and people would then eat on Sunday and, try to respect as much as they could, the laws or the things that had been heard through the years that you're supposed to rest on Sunday, a day of rest, that the Lord has given us and everything. And just, and also the first times that grocery stores started carrying beer, a lot of people wouldn't even go in the grocery store that had beer and things like this in it. But then it got to where the grocery store saw that the ones that were carrying beer and stuff was making so much more money and everything that it got to where it got to be all the grocery stores carried the alcohol and everything. So it just, things have really changed, and there wasn't all this negativism then against Christianity or against people that did go to church. In fact, there seemed to be more respect or something for them, but that seems to have kind of fallen by the wayside. And instead of people holding standards, Christians have kind of moved over into, going to those movies and everything. I know my wife and I about 2 or 3 years ago, this real nice movie theater here in town has a balcony where you can eat and go to the movie and everything, and we got some tickets somewhere, I've forgotten now, but we went to picked out this movie. It sounded like it'd be pretty good, and we got our meal started up in the balcony and everything, and then the movie started as we were about halfway through our meal. And I tell you what, when that movie started, we had to get up and get out of there. Every sentence something like that was just filled with cuss words. We couldn't stand it. It was terrible, and things have changed so much nowadays. But anyway, I want to share with you a story, and the title of it is "Died Abner as a Fool." Now, in God's plan for the people when they moved into the promised land, their promised land, and get set up and everything, He wanted to take care of those that might accidentally happen to hurt or kill someone, and he had the children of Israel set up 6 cities, 3 along the eastern coast in kind of the middle of the portion, and 3 in the western coast, so that everybody in the land of Israel would be close to what was called a city of refuge. And then Joshua chapter 20, the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, Appoint out for you cities of refuge, whereof I spake to you by the hand of Moses. Now see, he had already told Moses this years before, but he's reminding Joshua that the slayer that kill any person unaware or unwittingly may flee there, and they shall be your refuge from the avenger of the blood. Those 6 cities, whichever one's closest to them, if they accidentally kill someone, an axe head fly off while they're chopping wood or something like that, and they hit somebody, kill them, well, they're supposed to flee the city of refuge. And when he does flee into one of these cities, he shall stand at the entering of the gate of the city, and shall declare his cause to the ears of the elders of the city, and they shall take him into the city, and give him a place that he may dwell among them. And if the avenger of the blood, that is the next of kin now to whoever this person was that got accidentally killed or whatever, the avenger of the blood pursue after him, then they shall not deliver the slayer up to his hand, because he smote his neighbor unwittingly and hated him not before time. So see, it was going to be for accidental death. And he shall dwell in that city until he stand before the congregation for judgment, and until the day of the high priest shall he stand in that city. Okay, then shall the slayer return. Well, until the death of the high priest shall he stay in the city. So whoever's a high priest, when he enters the city, he has to stay in that city then the rest of his life until that high priest dies. And then he shall be able to return back to his own city, his own house, from where he fled. Now, they appointed 6 cities. And there were some rules here that, I'll point out to you that, this is God's word to them, what they're supposed to do to take care of these people and protect them when they have these accidents. Now, first thing though, died Abner as a fool in Psalms chapter 14 verse 1 and Psalms 53 verse 1. It describes there and tells, it says, the fool has said in his heart, there's no God. So, died Abner as a fool. So what this is saying is he died as if there's no God. In other words, he acted like or lived like there was no God at the time when he was dying. And I'm using this today because it seems that in our society so many people are living as if there is no God. Christians and non-Christians. Now you say, well, no, how can a Christian live as if there's no God? Well, by disobeying God's word and just being neglectful of God's word. We shouldn't become complacent and just take things for granted. Like, for an example, I've used many times here to point this out. In 2 Kings chapter 20, excuse me, not 2 Kings chapter 20, in 2 Corinthians 2, 10, and 11, and ahead of myself here, it says to forgive others lest you give Satan advantage. Now, how many Christians, maybe some of you listening even this morning, are holding unforgiveness to someone right now? They've done something to you, maybe hurt you, maybe even hurt you real bad, and you're still holding forgiveness because you don't believe they deserve to be forgiven. That was so terrible what they did. But see, the Lord on the cross, after people had arrested him illegally and was driving those nails in his hands and feet and stripes on his back and all those things, they even tried him illegally after they had him arrested illegally and everything. But Jesus didn't fight back to them. And on the cross, the love in his heart, because he didn't have to go to the cross. God had given him permission that he could not do that if he chose to. Jesus chose of his own to go to the cross for us. Now, and he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now see, every one of them, he could have had so much, hate for them and everything because he went through such suffering. So whatever it is that we go through, I know it's hard to do. And many times, even without being physically hurt, you get emotionally hurt. And I've even had to say, Lord, please help me to forgive because I know it is your will. You know in my heart, I really don't feel like it, but help me to forgive because I know it's your will. And we need to do it because like it says here in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 10, 11, forgive others lest you give Satan advantage. Now, when you give Satan advantage and he comes in and brings these curses into you and does all this harm, like Jesus says in John 10:10, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He will do everything he can to take your life. Excuse me. So now, don't open the door by disobeying God's law. And that's what happened in this particular case here. The rules for the city of refuge. First rule was that the person must flee to the city of refuge and then have a trial. Numbers chapter 35 verse 25 says, and the congregation shall deliver the slayer out of the hand of the revenger of the blood. And the congregation shall restore him to the city of his refuge, whither he was fled, and he shall abide in it until the death of the high priest, which was anointed with the holy oil. So he's got to flee to the city of refuge and meet with the elders of the city, and there'll be a trial to decide, was it really a murder or was it accidental? That's rule 2. It says that there's no way to buy off or have satisfaction or buy off with bribes on the terms of murder or accidental death. If they determined that the person had actually murdered that person, he had hate against them or had done something like that, and trying to fake that it was an accidental death at the trial, there was no way for them to buy off, offer a bribe, and get out of the punishment. The term for murder, the person would be killed. But now for the accidental death, it says in Numbers 35:32, and you shall take no satisfaction for him that is fled to the city of refuge. Now see, here, the person, because of his position back where he lived, his high position in his, city or whatever, because of circumstances in life before, it says, no satisfaction for him with that accidental death. He must then live in that city until the death of the high priest that was alive at the time he went into the city. And then if the high priest die, well, then he can go back home. Now, for murder in this particular case, there must be two witnesses to testify that actually the person had animosity toward the other one that had been killed, and that it wasn't an accident, that he had intentionally planned it or something. Now, the revenger of the blood, this is the next of kin for whoever it was that may have got killed, okay? Numbers 35:26-28 says, but if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whether he was fled, the revenger of the blood find him without the borders of a city of his refuge, the revenger of the blood can kill the slayer, and he is not guilty of the blood, because the person who fled to the city of refuge, says, because he should have remained in the city of his refuge until the death of the high priest. And only after the death of the high priest the slayer shall return unto his land of possession. Now, that means when somebody fled the city of refuge, they might have to live there for the next 15, 20, 30 years till the death of the high priest. Or if the high priest died the following week, he could have got out within a week. But during that time he's living there, he can't slip out at night and sneak back home or something like this to get outside that city of refuge. He has got to stay inside the border of the city of refuge. And then rule 4, Numbers 35:29 says, so these things shall be for a statute of judgment unto you throughout the generation in all your dwellings. So this is a statute of judgment that God has set up and everything. God has set up these rules. He expects them to live by them. But now, as time goes on, this was back when the children of Israel came out of slavery, and they were just sitting up there, and they went through the judges that ruled the children of Israel for a while. Then after the judges, the people cried out for a king, and then God gave them King Saul, the first king. And then David came along, and it took, as a young boy, he was anointed king, but he didn't become king until he was age 30 years old. And when they moved in then to the the promised land like this, and David becomes king, this is several hundred years after God had set up this rule about the cities of refuge. And so when David was living over with the Philistines near the border of Israel, because King Saul had been chasing him and trying to kill him for years, and so he lived outside the city of Israel, the country of Israel at that time, but very close to it. Well, when King Saul got killed, David prayed. Now this story about this is in 2 Samuel chapter 3 verse 33, or chapters 2 and 3 up to chapter 3 verse 33. Well, anyway, so David prayed, and God told him, to go on over back to his homeland, go back to Israel. And they anointed David as king then in Judah, because they recognized that some of them recognized that God had said years before that David was going to be king. Now, so in Judah, David became anointed, he brought his family. He had several wives and a bunch of children and all this, and brought them over there and settled down. And Joab was David's general. He was his highest general in this particular time. Well, the rest of the land of Israel, Abner, the captain of Saul's army, the head of Saul's army then, established Ishabeth, one of Saul's sons, to be the king of Israel, setting up Ishabeth, King Saul's son, to be king over Israel. There became a dispute. So let's see now, in 2 Samuel in chapter 2, it starts out, there was a big determination. Who is going to be king of Israel? Well, David sent his general Joab, and Ishabeth sent his general Abner, with each of them with a group of men, and they were to meet at the pool of Gibeon. This is in verses 12 to 13 of the 2 Samuel. They're supposed to meet there and discuss and find out, what can be done to bring these two together. As they sat down and was talking there at the pool of Gibeon, Joab called over to them, and they decided what they would do. For some reason or other, each side would send 12 young men, and they would fight. They would get together, and this is in verse 12 here of chapter 2. It said, "And Abner son of Ner, and the servants of Ishabeth the son of Saul, went out from their cities to Gibeon. And Joab, the servant of David, went out and met together at the pool of Gibeon, and they sat down, and one on one side of the pool, and the other on the other side of the pool. So they were sitting to where they could, talk back and forth, but the pool was between them. And Abner said to Joab, 'Let the young men arise and play before us.'" And it wasn't really play here as we think of play. It was these 12 men from each side was going to go out and fight. It doesn't say here that they decided whoever won the fight, like that, would have any type of, victor, or would decide anything about who's going to be king or anything, but they did. They set it up like this. So there they arose, the 12 from each side, and they went over by the number 12 of Benjamin, and so on like this. And they caught every one his fellow by the head, and thrust his sword in the fellow's side. See, so that wasn't playing very much. So they fell down together, and there was a very sore battle that day, and Abner was beaten, and the men of Israel before him, the servants of David. So David's men with Joab then won this battle, and as they were chasing them home, David's men with Joab started chasing Abner and his men back to their home. Now, Joab had two brothers with him, Abishai and Asahel. These two brothers and Joab, the three of them there, and Joab now is David's general, they were chasing these people back home because they had overpowered them and everything like this. Now, Asahel, one of Joab's brothers, he was younger brother, and he was very athletic, but evidently not very smart, but he was very athletic. He could, run very well. He started chasing Abner. Now, Abner's this older man that's a general, over on the Israel side, Ishabeth. So Joab's young brother starts chasing him. In verse 20, Abner asked, "Are you Asahel?" And the young man replied, "Yes." Now, it's interesting to me that they were evidently running close enough that they could talk back and forth. But Asahel was chasing Abner. And in verse 21 here, Abner said to him, turn to the side to thy right hand or to thy left, and lay thee hold on one of the young men, and take thee his armor. But Asahel would not do it. See, he didn't even have any armor, and here he was chasing Abner, the general of the other side. And they were close enough that he asked him, said, turn aside, get some armor, do something. He said, I can't fight you like this. You know, he was saying it wouldn't be fair. And not only that, what would your brother Joab say? Because Joab and some of the others were chasing also, but, you know, Asahel was a best runner, so he was up closer to Abner. Well, he didn't listen to him. So then in verse 22, Abner says again to him, turn aside. I can't fight you. I can't fight you. You don't have any armor, everything like that. See, he didn't want to hurt the guy, the young man. That's when I said, you know, he might have been a way to fight. He said, I can't fight you. What will Joab say? See, he's concerned about this. Well, verse 23 then, Asahel would not turn aside. So he got so close to him that Abner then had to kill him. Because if he wouldn't, the young man was going to kill him. That's what he was chasing him for. So he speared him, and it says, and pointed out that he run his spear under the fifth rib of Asahel, Joab's younger brother, and killed him. And I'll leave it right there, and we'll be right back in just a minute. A couple of minutes.
The staff of K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network is proud to announce that our very own Rowdy Rick Robinson has been selected as one of the top conservative talk show hosts in the nation for his program America Off the Rail. Again, congratulations to Rowdy Rick Robinson for a job well done and another reason to stay connected to K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com. God's Pure Word of Faith with Richard Hardin can now be heard on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7 a.m. Central, 8 Eastern, and on Sunday mornings at his regular time, 6 Central, 7 Eastern. Join with him and let's turn our country back to God. It only takes a spark to start a forest fire. Let's get on fire for the Lord. Right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. K98talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98talk.com. Visit Richard's website at rahardin.com. That's the World Wide Web at rahardin.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Hardin to see and purchase his books.
Welcome back. I'm Richard Hardin. I'll be here with you now for the next 30 minutes. I want to finish this story. It's about being complacent with God's Word. God had set up, when the children of Israel came out of slavery and they went over to Israel, God had set up, or had them set up, 6 cities called cities of refuge. You know, so often you read in the scriptures about where Solomon and David and others that wrote part of the Psalms and everything said we flee to God, He is our refuge and our strength. Well, this is kind of where that comes from, because God actually had instructed them to set up these 6 cities that if somebody accidentally kills someone, chopping wood or doing something, you know, or if they threw a rock and it accidentally hit somebody and killed them or whatever, but the person was to flee to these cities or flee to the nearest city and meet with the council there, explain what happened, have something like a trial, and if it was determined to be accidental, the person would have to live in that city of refuge until whoever was the high priest at that time, when they entered the city, they would have to live there and not leave the city until after the high priest died and a new high priest. Now, why it was selected like that, but that's just the way God set it up. So if they were caught outside the city at any time for the rest of their life now until the high priest died, the avenger of the blood, who was the next of kin, you know, somebody's brother or dad or uncle or something like that, whoever the male next of kin was, the avenger of the blood, if the avenger of the blood caught the person outside the city limits, outside the, you know, the whatever determined, you know, like the city limit and everything, the walls of the city or whatever, he could kill that person, even though the person had accidentally killed someone and he was in there for protection. If he came outside the city limit, he was fair game to the avenger of the blood. He could kill him and nothing would be done about it. That was just the rule. Okay, now, so here, when King Saul died, David was anointed king in Judah, part of Israel. Well, the rest of Israel, Abner, King Saul's captain of his army when he died, set up his son Ishabeth as king of Israel. Well, here David down here has been anointed as king of part of Israel, Judah, and so there's a friction here. Who's supposed to be king? And David, his general Joab, had, you know, two brothers, Abishai and Asahel. Well, David sent some of his men over with Joab, and Ishabeth, King Saul's son, who was being anointed as king as the rest of Israel, with his general Abner, sent Abner over to meet King David's people, Joab, to have some type of discussion or meeting at the pool of Gibeon. Well, when they got there, they decided they would take 12 young men from each side and send them out there to fight each other. I don't know whether, you know, like if 12 of this side won, you know, what would happen or not, but it turned out it became a free-for-all, and it wasn't just the 12 young men fighting. Both sides started fighting, and there was about, 300 or 400 people killed that day. Abner's side, Ishabeth, the son of King Saul, his side lost the battle, so Joab and his brothers and the other men with him started chasing them away. And as they did, it points out here that Asahel, one of Joab's younger brothers, was a very good runner. So here he starts chasing Abner, the general of the other side, and he's very fast. I guess the general being older and everything, you know, couldn't run that fast, but he starts catching up with him, and the general hollers back at him in one of the cases and said, "Are you Asahel?" And he says, "Yes." They were close enough, see, like that, they talked back and forth during this. And so Abner asked Asahel to turn aside from chasing me and go get some armor to fight. If I'm going to have to fight you, like that, at least get some armor or something like that. See, I wanted it to be an honorable fight. Because the young man evidently didn't have any protective gear or anything like that. And he wouldn't do it. So Abner again says to him, "Turn aside." In verse 22, "I can't fight you like this. What will your brother Joab say?" Well, he still wouldn't do it. In verse 23, I guess he came so close to Abner that he couldn't resist him anymore. So in verse 23 then, "Howbeit he refused to turn aside," speaking of Asahel. "Wherefore Abner with his hinder end of the spear smote him under the fifth rib, that the spear came out behind him, and he fell down there and died." And so here Asahel had just attacked him without any of that gear, and as Abner had been trying to tell him, "I'm going to have to kill you if you keep on." Well, he did. He had to kill him. Joab and Abishai, the brother, was also chasing, and it says, "And the sun went down when they were come to the hill of Ammah that lieth before Giah on the way to the wilderness of Gibeon, they found their brother." But then Abner was still close by, and he called to Joab and said, "Shall the sword devour forever? Knowest thou not that it will be bitterness in the latter end? How long shall it be then ere thou bid the people return from following their brethren?" So he's talking to him saying, let's stop this now, and then Joab finally, agreed, and he blew the trumpet. It says in verse 28, "And all the people stood still and pursued after Israel no more, neither fought they any more." So Abner then goes back to his home with Ishabeth, King Saul's son, and takes his men that are remaining. And Joab returns back over to Hebron, where King David is, with his men. And it was quite a battle there. But now, that's not the end of the story. The problem is then, when they get back and get separated here, Abner and Ishabeth, King Saul's son, that Abner had set up as the king of Israel, and was trying to help him capture all of Israel, they got into a disagreement. King Saul had a concubine. Now the disagreement's over a woman. And it came to pass, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner made himself strong for the house of Saul. See, Abner's really getting to be a big guy with King Saul's son, the king. Okay. But now Saul had a concubine, King Saul did, whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of, Arah, something like that. Anyway, Ishabeth said to Abner, "Wherefore hast thou gone in to my father's concubine?" So he accuses Abner, true or false, it doesn't say here, but he accuses Abner of having sex with his dad's concubine. King Saul's dead now, but anyway, this really upset Abner. And so much so he said, "Am I a dog's head, which against Judah do I show kindness this day unto the house of Saul, thy father, to his brethren, and I'm trying to help you get to be king and everything, and you're accusing me of this?" Well, it upset him so much then that he decided that he was going to try to change sides in the position and go over and be with David and work with David then as one of his generals. he does this. He sends a message in verse 19. And so Abner also spoke in the ears of Benjamin, and Abner went also to speak in the ears of David in Hebron, all that seemed good. He was going to tell him, that I'll help you get to be king over all of Israel. And after Abner came to David and they talked, and he'd even brought some men along with him and everything like that, David sent him away and was pleased with it and was going to allow him to come back over then and be a part of his kingdom. And then they were going to work to get David to be king over the whole land of Egypt. The whole land of Israel. Well, at that time when he went back over there, he didn't meet Joab while he was there, because Joab was out fighting for David someplace. It just says he was out, chasing some people or something like that. But when he came back, one of his men, when Joab and all the host that was with him were come, they told Joab, saying, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and the king sent him away, and he is gone in peace. And then Joab, he's the avenger of the blood for Asahel that Abner killed, his younger brother. Joab came to the king and said, What hast thou done? Behold, Abner came unto thee. Why is it that thou hast sent him away, and he is quiet gone, or he's gone in peace? Thou knowest Abner the son of Ner, and that he came to deceive thee, to try to spy out on the land and everything. And when Joab was come out from David, he sent messengers after Abner and brought him back again. Now see, Abner had left and was heading back to his home, and then Joab comes back from a battle and talks to David, and then when he gets through talking to David, he sends people to catch up with Abner and say, hey, we need to talk. And when Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak to him quietly and smote him there. Listen to that now. See, I've pointed out a couple of times here, David, his headquarters was at Hebron, which was a city of refuge. Now, as long as Abner was in that city of refuge, he would have been protected. But no, he was outside. He was going back to his home. Joab then tricked him and said, come back. I need to talk to you quietly. And here's again, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly and smote him there under the fifth rib, just like he had killed his younger brother. And Abner died for the blood of Asahel, his brother. See, so here Abner gets killed right outside the gate of that city of refuge. Joab remembered the law and abided by it, because if you catch a person outside the city of refuge that's kill somebody accidentally or not, something like that, it was fair game for the blood avenger to kill him. Now, after when David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are guiltless before the Lord for ever from this blood of Abner. Let it rest on the head of Joab and on all his father's house, and let there not fall from the house of Joab one that has an issue, or that is a leper or something like this. And he goes on to like this, because of what he did. So Joab and Abishai, the other brother, slew Abner because he had slain their brother Asahel. And David said to Joab and all the people that were with him, rent your clothes, gird you with sackcloth, and mourn for Abner. And King David himself followed the bier. And they buried Abner in Hebron, and the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. And here's what David had to say then. And the king lamented over Abner and said, died Abner as a fool dieth. See, he died as a fool because he was acting, or he had just disregarded God's word. God's word was that he should be in that city of refuge. Now, if he had went inside the city of refuge to talk to Joab, Joab would not have had a right to kill him. But Joab kind of tricked him to get him outside the city so he could kill him, and met him out there, said, I want to talk with you quietly. But then King David says, died Abner as a fool dieth. Thy hands were not bound, nor thy feet put in fetters. As a man falleth before wicked men, so fellest thou. And all the people wept over him. See, he was saying, Abner, your hands weren't bound, your feet weren't, in fetters, and you just neglect on your part to pay attention to what you were doing and to God's law. And there was nothing done to Joab. Joab had the right to kill him, and he did. He didn't want him coming back over, and he was going to take it up for his, Abner killing his brother. Now, we have people today in our society, as I said before, compromising to God's word, compromising and, just a little bit of sin here, a little bit of sin there. Failing to forgive others is one of the biggest ones I've run into. I say reason that because through the years now, I'm a handwriting analyst, and it can show in people's, analysis so easy that they're holding bitterness back in the past against someone. And I counsel them every time. I say, you can't do that. You've got to let go of it, but you've got to do more than just let go of it. Start praying for that person that's hurt you. Pray for that person, because whatever they did to hurt you was not God working through them to hurt you. It was the devil working through them to hurt you. So, regardless of what happened, and they hurt you, start praying for them to be delivered from the devil so that they won't hurt anybody else, or that they'll be set free from the devil, because it wasn't God working through them that hurt you. So God wants them to be delivered. So you will be getting in God's will if you pray for the person you need to forgive, because God wants that person to never hurt anybody else like that. So to be in God's will, for sure, if you have hard feelings toward anyone back in your past, if you have unforgiveness, it's not only hurting you today, because in 2 Corinthians 2:10-11 says, forgive others lest you give Satan advantage. As long as you are holding that unforgiveness, you are allowing the devil to have advantage in your life. Your prayers are being hindered. That means for your family, your prayers for your wife, your children, and others are being hindered. Your prayers for your church are being hindered. Your prayers for your business are being hindered. Everything in your life is suffering some because of you opening the door and holding unforgiveness when you know it's God's will to forgive other people. In fact, in Matthew, during the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus was teaching them to pray, after the prayer, where he says, if you don't forgive others, when you stand praying, if you don't forgive others, your heavenly Father won't forgive you. And in the prayer we say, forgive us our sins as we forgive others. As we forgive others. When you pray that prayer and you say, as we forgive others, you better not be holding any unforgiveness against anyone, because that means you're asking God to not forgive you. But anyway, see, this is so serious. It's not just a joke or something, or a technique or a philosophy or anything like that. The scripture, God's word, says, forgive others lest you're giving Satan advantage in your life. So, if any of you have unforgiveness, the greatest thing you can do today is start praying for that person, and you will be set free. You can't go back and change anything, and your anger and your hurt is not in any way hurting that person any, but your prayers could be a blessing to them. Pray for their deliverance, and then one day you'll say, oh, I truly would like to see God bless so-and-so. I've got people back in my past I hated so much when I became a Christian, and one of the first things when God put his spirit of love in me like that, I was saying, oh, they need to know what I found. They need to know it. And then my thought was to share with them and help them get delivered too. Life by giving Satan advantage in your life. Just like in other areas, like that in James, it says, if you knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to you it is sin. If you're sinning, or committing an act of sin, that means you're blocking God's love in you and through you to that person right then. And see, that is the bad part of it, is you're blocking some of God's love into your heart, and you want as much as God's love as possible in you. So turn and start praying. Lost people now, that they're rejecting the love of God's salvation. When he brings the message, the grace of God that brings salvation, appeared to all men. And then it says the scripture, the gospel preached to them did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. And what it means is that when they heard God, but only if you hear and receive into your heart. So they're not mixing the gospel with faith or receiving it into their receiving it into their heart. They're just hearing it in their head and saying, oh, well, I want to sow my wild oats before I turn to God, or I want to, get out of college first, or I want to, get married, I get my life straightened out. All kind of excuses not to receive the love of God's word into their heart. But now, that is living then, like it said in the Old Testament there, a fool. You're living your life then by rejecting God's word. God and his word are the same, so you're living your life rejecting God as if there is no God, and you're getting the results in your life as if you don't have God in your life. Even Christians, if you're holding unforgiveness, or like in 1 Peter 3:7, husbands, dwell with your wives according to knowledge, being joint heirs of grace of life, as unto the weaker vessel, lest your prayers be hindered. And there's so many things in the scripture like that if we aren't careful, like it, we're going to be blocking God's love in our heart, and rejecting God's love. Then we're going to be giving Satan advantage in our life. And the thief only comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's why, that I wanted to share this day, because hundreds of years after God had set up those cities of refuge, Abner was complacent with God's word and didn't stay inside the city of refuge when he knew he was meeting the blood avenger of the young man that he had killed. See, if he had thought about God's word and the rules of the city of refuge, he would have known better than to meet Joab outside the city to have that quiet talk. Joab didn't want to have a quiet talk. He wanted to obey God's rules and be able to catch Abner outside the city of refuge, and he did. And so he then killed Abner, and there wasn't anything done to him. But King David says, Abner, Abner, why diest thou as a fool? And we have our hospitals filled with Christians all across our country that have unforgiveness in their hearts to people that have got them there. The devil has got them in the hospital sick, like that, and he's going to keep on until he takes their lives. Or they've been involved in some kind of crooked deal or something like that in business. And that crooked deal, if you look through Proverbs and everything, God does not like unjust weights. And what it means is, when you're weighing produce and things like this, and you say, well, it's a little heavier than it is to sell it, or something like this, unjust weights and all this. And when people are involved in crooked deals, they're giving Satan the advantage in their life. When you steal things, you're giving Satan the advantage in your life. See, it depends on the things you're doing like that. Now, we don't lose our salvation for committing those acts and holding unforgiveness and things like this, but we certainly are giving the devil advantage here on earth, and we're suffering here and living as if there is no God. We need to be studying and seeking God's word and doing the best we can to live by it. If you're listening today, and I had a friend tell me months ago, that he just said, yes, the Lord called me, and I didn't want to change my lifestyle then, so I didn't respond to him. If you're listening today and you haven't received Christ, your personal Lord and Savior, God has promised in Ezekiel 36:26, the new covenant. He says, a new heart also will give you, a new spirit will I put within you. I'll take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I'll give you a heart of flesh. He's going to give us a new heart, a heart of flesh, and I'll put my spirit Christ within you. He'll put His Spirit, His living Word in us. See? But we got to confess our sins. It says if we confess our sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. See, now, neglecting God's Word or putting Him off like that is giving Satan the advantage in your life. You're suffering from it. Your loved ones, everybody is. We're not a child of God until the Spirit of Christ comes in our heart. Romans 8:9 says, now if any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of His. Now, we're creatures that He's created and everything, but we're born without any Spirit of God in us. We have to invite His Spirit to come in us. And all you have to do then, Romans 10:13, whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. But it's got to be an honest, repentant prayer, wanting to turn from your sins, not just to say like I'm getting saved and I'm going to not go to hell or something like that. Not just an insurance thing, but you've got to invite Him to come into your heart and surrender your heart and life to Him. And it is so sad for so many people that neglect that. Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Pray along with me now. Just say, Jesus, I ask you to please forgive me of my sins. Cleanse me of my sins. Come into my heart. I want to turn from my sins, and I surrender my heart and life to you. And I invite you to come into my heart, to create in me that new heart, the clean heart, and live in my heart. I want to be a child of God. In your name, Jesus, I ask. Amen. It doesn't have to be those exact words. Let's see, 2 Corinthians 3:16, it says, when the heart of man turns to the Lord, the veil of separation lifted. When the veil of separation between our heart and God, like in the Old Testament temple, the veil between the people and the Holy of Holies where God was and everything. See, that veil of separation, God will come into us, just calling out from from a heart that has a total desire. You shall seek me and find me when you search me with all your heart. God says, right now is your day, your time for salvation. Call out to the Lord and receive Him into your heart.
Visit Richard's website at rahardin.com. That's the World Wide Web at rahardin.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Hardin to see and purchase his books. Here's a few tips in finding Richard's podcast. Go to the World Wide Web at K98talk.com. Scroll down to podcasts. When podcast comes up, look for a red button with a white plus sign in it. Open this content in a new window by clicking the link. When a new website appears, click on Shows. Then scroll to God's Pure Word of Faith. Click on the name and a list of programs will come up. That's it. Now enjoy God's Pure Word of Faith with Richard Hardin. God's Pure Word of Faith with Richard Hardin can now be heard on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7 a.m. Central, 8 Eastern, and on Sunday mornings at his regular time, 6 Central, 7 Eastern. Join with him and let's turn our country back to God. It only takes a spark to start a forest fire. Let's get on fire for the Lord. Right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. The staff of K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network is proud to announce that our very own Rowdy Rick Robinson has been selected as one of the top conservative talk show hosts in the nation for his program America Off the Rails. Again, congratulations to Rowdy Rick Robinson for a job well done and another reason to stay connected to K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.